प्राच्यम का जो प्रयास है बहुत गौरव जगाने वाला है।
60 साल में हमने जो खोया उसको वापस लाने का काम कर रहे हैं।
Prachyam is doing an amazing job.
प्राच्यम का जो पुरुषार्थ है घर घर पहुंचे।
ऐसे अप्रतिम पुरुषार्थ के लिए मेरी अनंत शुभकामनाएं हैं।
Prachyam is doing an excellent job to give you knowledge which you don't get in school.
ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। Namaskar. Welcome to Unfiltered with Prachyam Live. Our great rishis, they propounded some of the greatest science. And one of those sciences was astrology, Bharatiya jotish. But what is astrology? People are not very clear about it. Some people say it is a pseudoscience. Some people say that, no, I don't believe in it. Some people have absolute faith in it and they follow its advices. But still, largely, the people are not clear about what is astrology. And with the time, with so many astrologers coming in, trying to interpret astrology and the text as per their own understanding and knowledge, a lot of confusion has arisen. So I thought it would be great if we come up with this topic of astrology in our Unfiltered with Prachyam Live. The great rishis like Maharshi Parashar, father of Maharshi Vedvyas, he propounded astrology through amazing scriptures. Then Maharshi Gemini, other great scholars, Varahamihira, Mantreshwar, they wrote some amazing text on astrology. And it is very important that the sciences of the rishis is carried forward to the coming generations. So Jotish is one of the 6 Vedang. Shiksha, Kalpa, Nirukta, Vyakaran, Chand and Jotish. It is developed as a framework of astronomical observations, mathematical mapping of celestial positions, cyclical analysis, and interpretation of how cosmic order may correspond with events unfolding in human life and society. So today's conversation is not about predicting doom. It is asking about a more ambitious question. Can ancient Indian time frameworks offer another lens to interpret the transformations unfolding across the world today, or whatever is happening in our lives? And can they help us respond with greater clarity rather than anxiety? So to explore this, we are joined by someone who became known internationally at a very remarkably young age. Our guest today on the show is Abhigya Anand. Abhigya, welcome, namaskaram, pranam, welcome to our show. Thank you so much for sparing time to come on our show today.
Thank you again. It has been an honor to be here. And I'd like to thank the viewers also for being with us today. That was indeed a very beautiful introduction of Jyotisha. It is a subject that has been enshrined directly as the eyes of the Vedanga, as the eyes of the Veda Purusha. It is allotted that kind of significance. Apradipa yatha ratrihi anaditya yatha nabha tatha samvatsaro raja brahmatyandha ivadhvani. They say that Jyotisha is so significant and so powerful that a king who does not have proper astrological guidance is akin to a man running amok amongst the path, blinded completely. So it is a very helpful subject, although we cannot definitely call it a precise science, because the definition of science is very different. This is very much beyond science. It is something that even we do not completely understand. We rely on the words of the sages by deductions, anumana, aptavakya, to understand it better. To put it simply for the viewers, Jyotisha is a study of the science of light that is given out by different celestial objects and grahas and influencing agents around our solar system and even beyond, the rashis, the nakshatras, etc. But it is said that these influence your situations in life. They influence their targets. The targets can be a collective target, a group of people, a society, or even an entire planet. Or they can be specific individuals. And these are not wanton effects, rather they are completely based on the karma that each individual or group commits and has accumulated. For example, if a lot of negative karma is being accumulated by a person, gradually when that each action is like a contract and it has somewhat of an expiry date, and the moment that date hits, which is decided by the positions of the grahas, the person experiences the results of their action, and the same can be scaled for entire societies and tracts of land as well. For example, it is not too uncommon for the scriptures to state that this land has accumulated a lot of karma, and hence the people here and the land itself must experience the results of that karma. So the same influence that you can study on an individual can be scaled up to a collective, and the Shastras have spoken of this several times, and I've been very fortunate to have come across these patterns at a younger age, all by Bhagwan's grace. I've just been an instrument. Most of the time it feels like I have had no agency and it has just happened. So I thank you again for having me here, and pranams.
Thank you so much, Abhigya. Same thing happened with me also when I was learning astrology. From my great guru in Kashi. It appeared to me as if, I know all this. And it just came back to me, as if, I'm just revising it. So, and it has been so helpful to me in my life because very interesting, because I was a marine officer, so modern astronomy was my subject. And I could correlate that with the ancient astronomy, which is, the foundation of our Jotish. And I used to do these comparative studies, and I found it very, very, very interesting. And my interest kept on growing, over the years. Just to make our audience understand, Abhigya, I just wanted to ask you. So you very well described, what Jyotish is. So essentially, it is, the study of our own karma, through the chart which is cast, at the time of our birth, So, and you said, very well you said, because this is what I also believe in, and I had written a research paper. It's the science of light, so beautifully said, The light carries information, and, it connects the entire universe together, So, essentially what happens, whatever we do is, the karmas that we do is stored somewhere. And the karma is read through the science of Jotish. Can you just elaborate on this a little bit?
Definitely. There is a beautiful verse. Yadupachita manya janmani shubha shubham karmanah tasya panktim vyanjayati shastrametat tamasi dravyani deepaiva, which is very beautiful. Varahamihira very emphatically states that the karma that has been accumulated, shubha shubham, both auspicious and inauspicious, are delineated, are illuminated by the study of Jyotisha, just as a lamp illumines a dark path. So your own previous birth karmas are simply illumined by the study of Jyotisha. Essentially, the grahas are just agents. Let me give a very simple example here. Say there is a car accident, right? Two cars collide, and say, I'm just driving the vehicle and another vehicle just rams in. My first thought when it comes to cause and effect is that that person rammed into my vehicle and hence he is at fault. This particular individual standing in front of me, made up of the Pancha Mahabhutas, physical as a person, is the reason behind the issue. If you go a little bit deeper, you'd realize that the person's background, the family they were brought up in, the situations they went through in their childhood, which eventually led them to become, say, an alcoholic or whatever it is. And eventually that upbringing led to this person who ended up speeding and hitting my vehicle. That's a second level of understanding. You go a little deeper. The third level is, why was this person even born in such a manner? And what really brought him here? And what really happened that led me to be on the same road as him at the same time? That is a karmic level of understanding, and that is based on your own previous birth karmas. A level between that is, well, all of this happened because of a certain alignment of the grahas. But technically, it's not the grahas that are causing the accident. They appear to. Just like that person appears to have caused the accident by driving fast into your vehicle, it is truly not him who has done it. The Bhagavad Gita also says that one who thinks that he is the doer ultimately is a fool. So there are levels to cause and effect in our philosophy. And at a very higher level comes karma. And karma is simply given, the exact results of the karma are simply given to an individual or the target. We can call the thing a target here, the person, by the grahas. The grahas are the agents, they are the media for the karmic result.
Very well said. So the planets as such, they are neither malefic nor benefic towards you. They are just the agent, which is just, as a medium, they're conveying, and through them we come to know what we have stored as our own karma in the past, right?
True, very true. That is correct.
Okay. You mentioned about Varahamihira. If you can please tell our audience the story, how he was named Varahamihira.
Absolutely, absolutely. So Varahamihira has been one of my, absolute idols in Jyotisha and in any study. And before I even discuss about him, I just imagine the sun, and the sun happens to, set at this moment. So we can begin with his prayer before we continue. Om Murtitve Parikalpita Shashabhruto Vartma Punarjanmanam Atmetyatmavidam Ritushcha Yajatam Bhartamara Jyotisham Lokanam Pralayodbhavasthiti Vibhushcha Nekadha Yashrutau Vacham Nasadadhatvaneka Kiranastrailokya Deepo Ravihi. Very beautiful verse where he literally narrates the principles of Jyotisha within a prayer while ensuring that it is sticking to a rhythm. And this is not just one verse. He has composed thousands of such eclectic verses, and it just really has shocked everyone. The primary commentator of Varahamihira, Bhattotpala, has himself said that this can be none other than an incarnation of Surya, in the sense he radiates that same prodigious nature as the sun has, that brilliance. So how he got his name is very interesting. There is an anecdote from certain other scriptures, again, where so Varahamihira was serving as he was serving the country as well as the royal court in making predictions, etc. That was a norm back then. Even if you think of it, everywhere from the Greek Isles to India, the entire Proto-Indo-European civilization at the time, and even afterwards, was relying on Jyotisha very significantly, from Alexander to our great kings and everyone else. So they used to each have their own Raja Jyotishis. And Varahamihira was one of the Raja Jyotishis. In fact, he is not just a Jyotishi, he also had some administrative responsibilities. He was also a ruler of certain parts of Bharata. So once when a king's son was born, they asked him to cast the chart, right, and predict about the prince. And Mihira studied the chart. Varahamihira at the time called Mihira, studied the chart, and he made a prediction, a grim prediction, of course, that the king's son would pass away at the age of 18, because he was a master in timing events specifically. So he put everything together and said, this person is going to pass away at the age of 18. And king was very much outraged by this prediction, obviously, because it's a very grim prediction. So and of course the king made all arrangements to ensure that nothing happens to the prince, putting him in the most protective environments possible, and ensuring that everything works properly. On the 18th birthday, there are two versions of the story. I'll tell the more dramatic version, obviously, wherein one of the pillars, there was this beautiful sculpture of a wild boar, and all of a sudden it was sculpture of a flagstaff. In two versions of the story, the flagstaff just collapsed, and the part of the wild boar, right, the horn, pierced the prince, and he died. So that's a very, very powerful description of Varahamihira's predictive potential. Not just predictive, because you really cannot glean such detailed insights directly from a chart unless you have that intuitive capability. He was closely connected to Surya. He used to begin his day with a worship of the sun. He used to be doing his Surya Upasana so regularly. He was directly connected to Surya, and hence he could delineate such precise insights. Ordinary people like us would really struggle to reach that level.
To me, you appear to be an incarnation of Varahamihira himself.
Yeah, and he's absolutely my idol, and yeah.
Yeah. So sun, the Surya is the master of the solar universe. So how important it is for astrologers to worship Surya? What does the text say about it?
Surya is the solar orb that we see. We call that Surya as well. But Surya is actually far beyond that. Surya is Bhaskara, brilliance. The brilliance in every star, whether it's 100 times larger than the sun, smaller than the sun, the light that is even emanated by other bodies upon reflecting off them from celestial objects, everything is Surya. The Surya Tattva is basically light. And when we say that Surya is the lord of everything, we are referring to that Surya Tattva and Surya Narayana at the end of the day, which is all permeating. There is light everywhere, all permeating. So it is very important for a Jyotishi to worship that one light. It's not just that we are worshipping one solar orb, although for us earthlings, it's the solar orb that's everything for us. It is that which has given us life, that which has sustained everything here, that which is the source of the earth itself and all the other grahas. So we owe everything to Surya. Every one of us should worship Surya. Someone who wants to know about the past, present, and the future, where Varahamihira says very beautifully, Trailokya Deepo Ravihi, in the end of the verse, right? So when he says Trailokya Deepo Ravihi, there are two meanings to this. One is Surya illumines the world physically with his light, right? That is true. But he also means it in a different sense, past, present, and future. Surya illumines the three lokas. What are the three lokas? There are three states of time that appear in an illusory manner. Technically, the past is non-different from the present, which is non-different from the future. If you look at the Atharva Veda's Kala Suktam, which also hints at the same. But we, because of being bewildered by Maya, we look at it as three different states. There is a past, there is a present, and then there is a future. By worshipping the sun and by imbibing that light in our life, we can start to gradually blur those lines between the past, the present, and the future. And that blurring is very beautiful at times, very intense, and it can really, upset your life in certain ways as well. But it is a half spiritual experience and a half material experience. It must be experienced.
And what are the qualities that an astrologer should have? If you can just tell me that.
Absolutely. So there is the chapter in Brihat Samhita, the first, I think it's the second chapter, which talks about the types of Jyotishis and how a Jyotishi should be and how he should not be. Certain qualities include being truthful, which is very important, because that light that is streaming through you must be uninterrupted as much as possible. As ordinary mortals, it does get corrupted here and there because we think of hundreds of different things. That's very natural, but we must keep meditating, keep trying so that it becomes pure. And how do we do that? By being truthful as much as possible, and by constantly giving practice to one's intuition, by following a sattvic lifestyle to a large extent, not being envious of anyone, and magradaha kasya svidhanam, for example, not trying to usurp something from anyone, not being envious of anyone, and not being too angry, not having, not imagining anything negative for someone, not wishing anything negative for someone, having good physical traits as well, being physically fit. Strangely enough, one might find this very strange, but Varahamihira also states that a good Jyotishi should be physically fine and fit. He states quite a few reasons for that, but they're actually very deep. And a Jyotishi must have compassion. A Jyotishi must practice sadhanas, regular sadhanas. I practice only sattvika sadhanas and mainly restricted to my Sandhya Vandanam. Nothing beyond that personally, but there are many people who practice deeper and more specific sadhanas, and they can do that as well. A Jyotishi should always prioritize the well-being of the person who is coming to ask him, not his well-being. So when someone comes to ask a Jyotishi must suggest things for the well-being of the person. That should be the intent. And these are the primary qualities.
This is why I asked you this question, that now you see all kind of people practicing astrology, and I thought, they should know that there are certain ethical and moral codes. There are certain prerequisites before you start practicing Jyotish. Just to explain them, what would happen if you don't follow these, moral codes, which you just mentioned? What kind of karma would they accumulate?
Yes, indeed, they will accumulate negative karma for sure. It is said that a person who studies Jyotisha properly will never fall to disrepute, nor will he go to apparent hell. So hell here means basically a position where one has to experience the results of one's negative karmas for an extended period of time. It is not the Abrahamic hell. So one who studies Jyotisha will not go there. Why? Because when you study Jyotisha properly with sincerity, you truly understand that every action has a reaction that is not just limited to the physical reaction. It's not like if I drop this right now, that's going to break the floor and hence there's going to be a reaction. It is deeper, because say if I commit a crime and that crime goes unnoticed and no one punishes me for it, technically that action of mine did not have a proper reaction, right? But Jyotisha teaches you with practical examples that your actions indeed do have reactions. That's the only field in the entirety of the Vedas which speak of that. So a true Jyotishi must actually practice that in his own life. Try not to do things that cause harm around you. That's the whole purpose. Now, what happens to Jyotishis who don't follow this? One, they bring disrepute to the science. And two, they also suffer themselves in a myriad of manners. And it is very, very important that a Jyotishi studies the science properly and suggests remedies with the pure intent of helping the person in front of him, and that too logical ones that are supported by the scriptures. I, for one, only support Vrata, Dana, Japa, Dhyana, Homa. Vrata is austerity, to put it plain in simple words. Anything that one can do, a prayasa, an effort, a conscious effort with kayena vacha manasena buddhya. So manasa buddhya kayena vacha. So a conscious effort to give up something for a higher purpose. That is basically vrata, austerity. And the higher purpose can be purification of the self, fasting, meditation, silence, mauna vrata, etc. These really purify your karmas. Mauna is one of the best. And Jyotishis should only suggest within this framework, dana, giving for a higher purpose, not just donating to the Jyotishi, giving for a higher purpose, right? Dana, japa, chanting, constant chanting, homa, which is basically sacrifice for a greater purpose again, and invitation of higher forces that are around us. Currently, we see this chair, this table, the plants and trees around us, because this is all we can perceive at the moment. There is something beyond this level which we are currently not able to perceive. We invite those great forces like Agni Tattva, Vayu, Surya into a homa. And there are certain rituals for that which currently cannot be fully understood by science, but we do recommend it so that a person can establish a connection with the divine. And that is a homa, and only certain priests are qualified to do so, who have studied for several years under a guru who can do it. If one is not having access to this, it is better to go with japa, dhyana, and dhyana is excellent. People practicing different forms of dhyana, they can reduce their negative effects in their jatakas greatly simply by proper contemplation. And there might be a question here which I'll just quickly go into. I understand it might be a tangent, but I'll quickly go into. One might think, these pariharas, basically you're trying to edit your destiny. That doesn't really work because destiny is absolute, which is correct in a way. Destiny essentially is absolute. But we do not know our destiny. None of us truly know where or what will happen at the very next moment. Jyotisha simply gives us clues. It is like a translucent window behind which destiny is, and you're simply able to trace it to an extent, right? So since you really do not know destiny, there is no harm in doing whatever best you can to reach the best possible version of destiny that you can. And secondly, when you're doing a parihara, it's akin to basically going to a doctor at the right time. You end up going to the doctor at the right time. The doctor identifies that you have a certain tumor at the right time, and you get rid of that tumor again at the right time, and all the processes happen and you're cancer free. This would not be attributed to the doctor changing your destiny. The doctor hasn't changed your destiny. The doctor was part of your destiny. You visiting the doctor at the right time was also part of your destiny. And you doing everything to become cancer free, and in fact you actually getting that tumor in the first place, was all part of your destiny. Similarly, you being able to find a Jyotishi, you being able to, or yourself looking at your chart, or coming across a saint who looks into you and your future without your chart as well, and telling you about the future, all has to be in your destiny. Yes.
Very well said. And that is why Jyotish is called, the netra. It gives you a vision to look ahead. My guru used to say, that the purpose of Jyotish is Dik Darshana. He used to say that, suppose you are going on a road, you don't know what lies ahead, but, through the eyes of astrology, you can see that there would be a pit or a deep hole, or there would be some kind of obstruction, and it is to make you careful, and so that that this might be expected, and you can take some preventive or proactive measures to avoid that. So this is what he used to say is the purpose of Jyotish. Coming back to one more question, Abhigya. What planetary combination should be there in the horoscope of the Jyotish, of the astrologer himself?
That's a very wonderful question. The Jyotishi should have some sort of a connection between Guru and Surya and Chandra, some sort of a connection between the three. The stronger the connection with these grahas. And the stronger the connection with these grahas, the easier it is to get those lines between the past and the present, the future blurred to a small extent. And that just reveals patterns to you on its own. You really don't need to do anything much at that point. You just sit and be the instrument and do as it comes to you. So these are certain combinations: Surya, Chandra, Guru. There's no specific combination, but Surya, Chandra, Guru, and Buddha. Basically, something should be connected between these four. If Shani is connected, it's even better, as that provides a deeper insight into time, because Shani is the Karaka of Kala, as you very well know. So there has to be some connection between the lagna, the 5th and the 9th as well in relation to these grahas. So any permutation and combination that is intense enough would be amazing. Yeah.
So we talked till now, about the fundamental principles of Jyotish. We talked about how our great rishis have propounded, this astrology for all of us to understand, how it can guide us in our lives, what everybody should do, especially the astrologers. The sadhana paksha is so important. The sadhana of Surya, so very well explained, of not only the orb, but the source of all light in the universe. I think Maharishi Vishwamitra has already given such a great mantra to us, the Gayatri mantra, the Savitur has to be worshipped so beautifully. You said. Today we are going to discuss further, and also we talked about the karma. That how Jyotish astrology is the interpretation of your own karma through the chart, through the horoscope. So astrology is very profound, both mathematically and philosophically, to grasp it, to understand it, to absorb it, deeply. And that is what the sadhana of an astrologer is, that he has to understand it very, very deeply. He should follow, the moral and ethical codes, what Abhigya just mentioned, and, a life of austerity. And he should think of the well-being of the Jataka who comes to him. So today we are going to talk about karma. He has already talked about, so beautifully explained, and that is why, in order that we do proper karma in our life, in order the karmas are regulated, well controlled, well thought, our seers, our great rishis, our great scholars, our Vedic traditions, it all showed us, the righteous path of life, the dharmic way of life, the path to lead, a life of dharma. And that is why, they talked about dharma. So from karma to dharma, we are going to, talk about dharma now, and also how Jyotish, astrology, is not only applicable to individuals. As Abhigya just touched upon it, we are going to talk about more in detail that it has got a larger impact on our surroundings, on various places, on various countries, and all around the world and all around the universe. So we are going to talk about all that. So how do you how would you define dharma? What is the connection of dharma to the karma that we do?
It's a very, very profound question. So it hits right at the root of the question that has bothered a lot of people and led them onto a spiritual path. Klesha moolah karmashayah drishta drishta janma vedaniyah sati moolah tadvipakah jatyayurbhogaah, as Patanjali Mahamuni very beautifully states. So what is the root of suffering, we all ask, right? So what is the root of suffering? It is essentially karmashaya, the collection of karma. That is the root of all suffering. Now, suffering can be of different types. Suffering can be material, proper suffering, where one experiences grief due to a loss or a negative situation in life. But even positives in life are technically suffering. So all of suffering, whether positive or negative, all of those experiences which bother the jiva are essentially a result of the karmas that have been accumulated. The sages state that if you follow your dharma, you can eventually purify yourself of your karmas. And once it becomes zero, once it becomes nil, and that is when you basically realize the true nature of the world. And then your karmas become nil. After that, whatever your body does, because even eating is basically a karma, the way your food sourced, all of those little karmas will become agami karmas. So the sages' idea, they've created this framework called dharma. If everyone follows dharma properly, they can eventually purify themselves of the negative karmic reactions and reach a state where they can attain a guru. They can find a guru, then that guru continues to guide them further and further and further. Some of us are lucky to find gurus, some of us still need to put in some effort. Bhagwan has probably kept something special for us later on for us to find a very good guru. So based on what we deserve, we will find the guidance, and we have to follow dharma for all of this. So dharma is a set of codes, conduct, principles. Essentially, dharma can be roughly translated as principles. It might not have a direct translation in English. So the principles that have been given by the enlightened ones to us, because as Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Mahamuni has also said that we common people are not capable of seeing that which is beyond the wall. Paramahamsas like Ramakrishna Mahamuni, they have seen what is beyond the wall, and they are compassionate enough to let us know how to reach there. So we simply follow them. Lord Sri Krishna also gave us the Gita out of compassion, so that if we follow what he does, we can do it. A simple thing of dharma, again, dharma is very complex, and I'm no expert in the subject. There are many people who are very in-depth. They have studied this in detail. They are called, the dharmagnyas. But a simple thing for a common person to know about dharma is just refer to the 16th chapter of the Gita. Try to practice the qualities the Lord explains there. I'm personally putting in an effort every single day to do that. No matter what the difficult situation, the positive situations that come, I try to practice these. So, abhayam sattva samshuddhi, jnana yoga vyavasthiti, danam damascha yajnascha swadhyayah tapa arjavam, ahimsa satyam akrodha, tyagah shantihi apaishunam, daya bhuteshu aloluptvam, mardavam hrihi achapalam, Tejah, Kshama, Dhritihi, Shaucham, Adroha, Na Atimanita, Bhavanti Sampadam Devim, Abhijatasya Bharata. I'll just pick a few qualities from this. Abhayam is fearlessness. If you know what you're doing is right and according to Dharma, there shouldn't be fear and hesitation in performing that activity. One should be fearless in that respect. Sattva Samshuddhi, one should constantly purify the psyche, the inner, the sattva. Jnana Yoga Vyavasthitihi, ahimsa. One should try to constantly cultivate jnana yoga, learning about the true nature of the world and of the self. Jnana yoga vyavasthiti. Ahimsa is non-violence. Even preventing violence counts as ahimsa. So if you are assigned the duty to protect your people, protect your family, that is your dharma. If someone else is trying to come in the way of your duty and break your duty, you are entitled to stop that violence with violence, and that is considered ahimsa. The absence of doing that would be himsa. So ahimsa is basically non-violence, including the prevention of violence when you are tasked to prevent it. And different people have different duties here. Ahimsa is an important dharma. It is known as paramo dharma, and we all must practice it. For example, where violence is not at all required, we're living in the 21st century. We really don't need to slaughter animals on such a large scale and keep eating them, causing so much pain to them. And we can really substitute everything we derive from that torture with something else that is sattvic. At least most of us who can should. Those who can't, we can help them do it gradually. So most of us who can should, by way of eating. And there are many people who simply harm animals. So you can practice ahimsa in your own little way at home. And the biggest positive of this is that people born in vegetarian families who have been taught to be vegetarian from day one, they do not get the punya that a person who consciously takes the decision to stop eating meat gets. For example, the Mahabharata states that a person who stops consuming meat out of compassion for the animals, out of the desire to purify oneself, gets the punya of 1,000 mahayagnyas, mahakratus, and that we do not get, basically, because our parents taught us from day one not to consume meat, and hence we did not have the agency, we did not have to think of it. But those who think of it and change, they are really great, and I admire them. And those who become vegans from that stage, they are yogis. So I think ahimsa is a gradual practice, and it is a very beautiful practice, and that's one key takeaway I'd like to give to those who are listening today. You might have already heard it, but yeah, again.
Well, absolutely, very well said. I wish, the world leaders today were listening to this podcast, and they could understand how important it is to practice ahimsa. So, the law of karma, the code of dharma, it is applicable to all of us, and it is applicable to, the nations around the world. And we are going to take this conversation in that direction. If I have to ask you, which planet denotes, dharma in a horoscope?
So an interesting thing, going into mundane Jyotisha now, I think a lot of people are interested in this as well. Guru denotes Dharma, Shani denotes Kala. The confluence between the two denote the state of Dharma in Kala and the state of Kala in Dharma. So when they come very close to one another, the world is just totally thrown off into a total whirlwind. When they come very close to one another, this happens every 20 years. But sometimes they come so close to one another that we haven't seen it in 800 years or so. And that happened in 2020. So whatever we are seeing right now is a result of that particular great conjunction, which will result the world entering into this whirlwind in which a lot of positive things will happen, a lot of negative things will happen. There will be great fear, there will be great prosperity, right? Both of them together. We are seeing this kind of era where literally the world is adding trillions in material value every single week or so, and at the same time you are seeing so much pain and so much fear as well. So everything is happening at a faster pace than before. If you compare the era before and after, why so? Because you asked a very good question here, which is the Dharma Karaka, which is Guru, came very close to Shani, the slowest and the largest grahas in the entire, keeping aside the ones that are not too visible, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. In the visible solar system, from the naked eye, the significant ones, Guru and Shani, are the largest and the slowest. So when they come together, it's huge. And this time it was super, super rare. And that is why we are seeing this acceleration. So the world is moving towards something you could call accelerationism. So even the human mind is thinking this way. I wouldn't say it's right or wrong. It's just a recipe of our time, I'd say. Yeah.
So you referred, Abhigya, to the astrological conjunction which happened in 2020, which has sown the seeds, of many things that we are witnessing, and many things that we are yet to witness in the future. Can you please tell our audience about, this peculiar conjunction that we had in 2020, and what are the ramifications that has happened because of that we have already seen in the past, and what all things might happen, as we go in the future?
So when Guru and Shani come together, Varahamihira states, Sammoha kosho bhayadau prajana. He states that if Shani and Guru come very close to another and are flanked by other grahas, this is called a kosha conjunction, and it results in heavy fear amongst the public. This conjunction took place in December 2020, and it was in motion several months before December. So an interesting story, let me relate to you all. Some of you might have already heard it when I was explaining it on some of my videos, but this was my introduction to Jyotisha as well. In fact, it was August 2019, and I was simply flipping through the pages of the panchanga. Normally you just look at today's date and you leave it as a Jyotishi. But that day I felt like flipping through the pages of the panchanga. I came to November 2019, and I noticed a special formation starting to appear. You might have also seen that combination that was coming up. And December it got even stronger. January even stronger. By February it was locked in with Rahu and Ketu as well. A sort of Kala Sarpa dosha appeared, in which all the grahas were locked in between this axis. And by March, it became even more spectacular as Mangala and Shani came very close to each other along with Guru, and Mangala and Shani were actually conjunct. And by April, the conjunction started to dissipate, but the intensity between Guru and Shani started to accumulate. And as it accumulates, there's sort of very strong tension that builds. And hence I made a video in August 2019 saying 2020 is going to be very disastrous in many ways. It's going to cause economic reset, a recession, and war of some sort, and say pandemics, world war is likely, and whatnot. So it was supposed to be a very transformative time frame. Obviously, a world war didn't happen, but in a way, the world was at war, and the pandemic did happen, etc. It was basically the grahas accelerating in this very beautiful fashion, which was so awe-inspiring and also grave at the same time looking at it. And that is what caused everything in 2020. The last time we saw something like this was way back in 1206, when the tribes in Mongolia were fighting with one another, and there arose this one person who literally put them all together and gave them a purpose. When you put a group of bloodthirsty tribes together and give them a purpose, there cannot be a power stronger than that. So that was Genghis Khan, and he was elected as a leader of his people in 1206. They swept from the eastern continent straight to Western Eurasia with such force, intensity, and speed. We haven't seen something like that in history. It changed the world. Even today, scientists note that it changed the environment. Till today, it has altered industrial civilization. It has changed the way we look at everything in human culture. It has changed food security for good and for bad in each thing. So that's the same thing we're seeing now. We see artificial intelligence, machine learning, advancements in quantum computing, and so on and so forth, so powerfully that it will completely change the way we think, the way we act, the way the future is going to be for the next 800 years. People will talk about this. So that is 2020 for you.
And as we move forward, what lies ahead, because certainly the world is going through very uncertain times. Very, as you said, wherever we see, like, nobody expected, that after the Russia-Ukraine war, there will be another big conflict which will happen in the Middle East. And it is going on, and which is impacting the world, which is impacting, countries like Bharat, which has got nothing to do with it, we have never done, such things in our entire history, But broadly, I just wanted to know that this conjunction, as we go in the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, till the time we are going to be around, how it's going to affect, generally the geopolitics, how it is going to affect the world, what, we will see, the people will see, we will witness in the coming times, what is going to, generally the trend is going to be.
That is a very, very good question. When we started discussing today, the Lagna was exactly around 29 degrees, about 30 minutes. I'm currently in Himachal, so 29 degrees and about 30 minutes of Vrishchika, right around the galactic center. Now, that is the center of our galaxy, Mula, which is aptly named Mula by the sages as a source. And when the Lagna is rising here, it's very good for spiritual discussions. And it also augurs, it means something about the future as well. And since you posed this question exactly around the time that the Gandanta is about to get over, it means that, because I do look at this as well, even though it might seem that our conversation might be insignificant to the world, it provides a window into understanding things. So I see that a bulk of the difficulties for the next 4 or 5 years have already been experienced. The next round that we will see very severely this way will probably be after 2028. And the world is currently going through an era of prosperity as well. India, that has not yet percolated to our country, considering that because of a lot of karma, we have not been able to receive all of that wealth at this time frame. Other countries, mainly the US, have basically added around $30 trillion in market capitalization in the last, say, 5 years, whereas we have barely managed to do so. But our country has been amazing in uplifting the poor at a scale that the world hasn't seen. Other countries are busy in, adding on to their market caps, whereas we have been able to uplift hundreds of millions of people out of poverty and enable a very fast-growing economy as well. So as far as what is going to happen to India going forward, I see those trillions of dollars that have been added in the global economy percolating to India very well after 2027 mid part. Until 2027 mid, this party of valuations is going to continue very nicely, and after that there will be a decline. And when that decline happens, which is very logical, it has to happen, that doesn't undermine the value of the technology itself. The technology might be extremely valuable, but the market keeps pricing in things. So talking of the economy, India is likely to experience an influx of a couple $1 trillion after 2027 mid, in my humble opinion, over 28, 29, 30, 31, but even sharper after 33. Because 2033 is when I see this current economic order kind of changing into something different. And the lamps of the current superpowers are probably burning the brightest at the moment, which means they're not likely to burn like this for too long. And when people get adjusted to such a party, it is difficult for them to be worn off it. And that wearing off will happen around 2033. When that happens, we have a very good window of opportunity, and our country and our leaders, I'm sure, will be able to take that very well. And we have to ensure that they're all responsible to take that very well at that time. And it will happen. We will progress very well. About the world, we are looking at a period of accelerationism between 2025 and 2033. The speed at which things will happen will make each generation feel like they are being totally thrown off, right? So currently, we the youth think that we are ready for the future, and we know how to use the tools and the situations that are evolving. But no, in another 2.5, 3 years, all of the things are going to be newer to us as well. So each generation will be getting, completely befuddled by the state of progress. So we have to quickly adapt. The logic behind this is that Guru isn't an Atichari movement. This has been talked of quite a lot in astrological circles recently. Why is Guru in an Atichari movement considered negative? Isn't speed a good thing? To answer that question, we can just use the analogy of a saint. Guru is like a saint, a Shubhagraha. If a saint comes to your house, you want him to spend some time there. That's when it's more positive. If he just rushes through your house in a hurry, you don't get the full benefit. You want him to pass through it slowly, sit down, take some time. Similarly, if Guru has to have a positive impact on society, it has to move slowly through the Rashis. Technically, Guru's movement is not fast or slow. It is moving at a uniform pace. But from the Earth's purview, just like a faster car going behind and a slower car coming up from behind, the backdrop of the slower car appears to be moving faster. Similarly, Guru's Rashi appears to be, changing faster. And what happens then is that the Rashis are deprived of that positive impact of Guru, and that results in Shani's impact immediately taking over, and the other grahas having a stronger influence. That results in this accelerationism, which results in the world changing rapidly, and good things and bad things happen. Opportunity for us primarily at the moment in India, of course, we haven't missed the AI bus. There's still a lot that we can innovate in. There's still a lot of raw materials, a lot of workforce that we can leverage into this at very good costs, and we can also ensure that the world benefits of our, other industries. But the biggest opportunity here, in my humble opinion, is agriculture. And I've been talking about this from the past for the past 4 or 5 years. And I believe, I echo the thoughts of the respected Vandana Shiva Mahodaya, who has beautifully articulated the importance of soil health. And we have a huge opportunity here, being the country with the highest amount of arable and fertile land. Arable land, there are other countries as well, arable and fertile land in the Indo-Gangetic plain and other regions of our country. So we have a huge opportunity with agriculture. The world is currently not valuing that very much. When AI takes over many industries, humans will still be numerous, and humans need food to power themselves. Humans will need to ensure that we have food that is, a proper uninterrupted chain of good food, not just food. And there will be a scarcity of that. That scarcity is going to be dangerous. So we Indians have an advantage here. We must gear up to create systems. Along with precision agriculture, we must also create systems that respect soil health and foster soil health. And that is probably a very good thing for our spiritual progress also. But on the material side, it's probably a multi-trillion-dollar opportunity in the next 1 decade, even larger than that perhaps.
Very true. I absolutely believe in what you said, because Prachyam has been working towards spreading awareness about coming up, practicing sustainable agriculture, what we call Vedic Krishi. We have made films, we have done podcasts with some very great minds. The Gau-based Krishi, this is what we advocate. People should, reduce the use of chemicals. They should preserve the pristine quality of soil that we have. And I totally believe that if we can do this, then absolutely, India can play a very, very important role in the future, where definitely there is going to be a food crisis. Coming back to what you just explained, what is the effect of Atichari Guru on the psyche of the people, on the dharma itself, and also on the geopolitically on a larger mass, on nations and larger landscapes.
Atichari Guru has an impact of dharma in terms of the sense of dharma has several meanings. The context in which I'm applying dharma here is the general nature of people, and the principles that people live by will evolve very rapidly around this time. The definitions of right, wrong, the definitions of action, inaction will change. Already the definitions of action and inaction are changing. The definitions of agency are also changing. The definitions of who actually commits action is also changing. So all of this is going to happen over the next 5-6 years. New religions will evolve. This will be a catalyst for a new religion. I believe a new system of thought which can concretize itself into a religion is possible around 2040, but the next years will be very helpful for that transformation. And one interesting thing that I'd like to add here, and before I continue, I must say I really love your channel from quite some time now, which I forgot to mention. I had watched one of the videos on Ayodhya Ram Mandir and its history. I believe that was on Prachyam. It was so moving,
Yes.
and I shared it with my channel as well. Wanted everyone to watch it because there was a motley of opinions about the Ram Mandir situation, and I firmly believed in it being the beacon of our civilization. So
Absolutely.
I thank you for your amazing work for Sanatana Dharma as well as for Bharata. It's just amazing, and
Thank you.
and the work towards agriculture is even more spectacular. And I look forward to watching more of your videos too. Yeah.
Sure. I will share some very interesting videos. I think we are all inspired and guided, by the same divine power, which gives us this such inspirations to work on, these things. When I get up in the morning, early morning, I get these beautiful inspirations that what I should work on. It is as if, the Adesh I see, from my gurus, from Ishwar, that you make, on these topics, and so much yet we have to do. We have made about 500 films till now. It is on the Prachyam OTT platform, all about Bharat, our Sanskriti, our, great philosophies, our Rishi Parampara, our Shastra, our Darshan, our Vangmaya, all about it. This is what my life is actually committed to. This is the mission of my life. And I get these inspiration, and you will not believe that there are so many ideas that keep on coming to me, and I wonder how will I do it, I already have a list,
Beautiful. I mean,
list of
it's very
topics.
inspiring because it's so difficult for me to sit and make one video. I hardly post 4 in an entire year, and I see work by people such as yourself so relentlessly being done. So I definitely appreciate it. Ji.
Thank you. Before I go proceed further, this question is there, in my mind, and I thought I should ask you, and I'm sure, the audience also would be looking forward, to an answer about this question. How did you, got interested in astrology, in jotish? What triggered it? How did you get this inspiration to pursue this path?
Actually, it just happened by chance, I must say. At the age of 6, I was told to study the Gita by my mom. By my mother, she introduced me to the Bhagavad Gita first and Sanskritam as well. So whenever my father used to come back from home, this happened in Stuttgart when we were in Germany, and she used to tell my father to encourage Sanskrit speech at home. So my parents both did not speak Sanskrit, but they had this desire that I should speak Sanskritam. So whenever he used to come home, I was like Upavishantu, and I used to broken little bit of Sanskrit grammar, but I used to still try. From there, Bhagavad Gita. And from there, I memorized the entire Gita at the age of 7, all the 700 verses. And I was fortunate enough to present it at the Sringeri Matham, where some people told me to pursue Sanskrit very deeply. And my mother told me to take up a full course. I did my Sanskrit studies, and that was amazing for me because me and my sister used to sit and chit chat in Sanskritam. And whenever I used to find someone who's speaking in Sanskritam, I used to be excited. And from there, next to my Sanskrit class was this Jotish class. And at that time, I used to read newspapers and magazines since the age of 3. I used to love history. So my mother used to get me those Tell Me Why books, and quite a lot of science books, basically. So I used to love reading microbiology and everything else. So this concept of Jyotisha was definitely not something I was interested in. In fact, I used to read those Sunday newspapers, in which you'll have those Aries, Taurus, Gemini, month to month.
Yeah.
So I used to cringe at that to an extent. But then when I saw this Jyotish class and one Mahodaya ji teaching his students, he was a very, very good teacher, and I just noticed it from outside. This is in the college called Divya Jyoti College of Astrology, and every Sunday they had these classes, and they used to teach everything in Kannada. I did not know Kannada at the time, so I had to learn Kannada to learn Jyotisha. They were very helpful enough to allow me to learn. That's how I got introduced, studied for 4 years. And after studying Jyotisha for 4 years and completing all the basic courses, fundamentals, every aspect that is needed to make advanced calculations, I decided to begin applying it. And my primary interest has been in history. Always history. Like, why did a certain event happen? So every time something happens, people look at it from different perspectives. A scientist looks at a nuclear explosion from the standpoint of science, mostly. Of course, there's a humanitarian angle as well. A humanitarian looks at it in the standpoint of human cost. An artist looks at it, tries to identify the aspects that are awe-inspiring, the pain, they try to capture it. A historian would look at the dates, the times, why did this all happen? A Jyotishi who's also interested in history is going to look at it from the standpoint of why did this all happen? What were the combinations behind it? And what led to all of this? Because one event doesn't happen randomly out of nowhere. There are several preceding events that lead to it. So I was super interested in that. And from there, I predicted certain events publicly. I've always tried to put it out there. I believe that if you want someone to respect Jyotisha, it is a pratyaksha jnana. So you cannot force people to respect Jyotisha and make them accept that you're a Hindu, so you must accept Jyotish. Because Jyotish is a pratyaksh science, we must give proof for it. And which better proof than making predictions in the public? So that was my idea. And I'm still learning Jyotisha. Every day is a new learning. A new chart is a new learning. Look at the stars outside. I feel there's so much more to learn.
Learning has no end. So you looked at the astrological conjunctions, and you also predicted about the pandemic, the corona pandemic. And when did you predict about it?
This was in August 2019 when I noticed that combination, and I posted a video in August, on the 22nd of August. Of course, I predicted that starting November there would be major problems. I titled "Severe Danger to the World." And it had parallels to 1917, that those combinations had parallels to 1917, 1943. They had parallels to 1206. So it was a motley miscellany. So I had to put it all together, stitch it. And hence at that time, I was thinking if something big and dangerous has to happen to the world, it has to be a world war, or it has to be a pandemic. So I put both possibilities and posted it on YouTube. November, nothing happened. I started to get comments saying, kuch nahi hua hai. And December as well, nothing happened. January also, there was just whispers of this. But then by February, unfortunately, it broke out entirely. And the world realized that, there is something beyond just what we're looking at. And starting November, later on, we figured out that the world figured out that starting November is when the first case was identified, the COVID case that took place. So that was a turning point for me, and it gave me more faith in the science, because you have to see it for yourself as well sometimes. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, I remember something very similar happened to me. My brother-in-law was a very wonderful astrologer, and he's no more now, but I miss him so much. His name was Shri Harsha. And, we used to have these long discussions on astrology. And in 2019, November, he just mentioned about this conjunction which is going to come up. And, like you, I was going on a very long tour, of shooting a very big film, around 3 to 4 months, with the entire crew, about of 20 people, and he said, and he came and he told me that he was very, he was telling me again, insisting that, maybe you should postpone it, maybe you should not go, the time is not right. And, we discussed about this conjunction, and I absolutely agreed with him, and I said, what you're saying is so right, so true, but you know how it is when everything is planned, well in advance, and when you have, so much at stake, and there is, so many logistics already worked out. And in my heart, I said, oh my God, I can't even back out. What should I do? So eventually, I told him that, we'll be very, very careful. But I have to go. It is my dharma, to go and do this, because I was making a very, very important film on Bharatiya civilization, on the Guru Shishya Parampara. So I went ahead, but his words, it came true. By February, we had to cut short because, there was this thing, the footsteps of Corona had arrived, and people knew that, and we all knew that, and I knew in my heart, because there's something is not right which is going on, and we have to be now very, very careful. So, sometimes if you see, if you can read the stars, if you can read, what is written in the skies, what they are indicating, it can give us an indication of some very, very important events of the future. So the purpose of, the purpose of this discussion with you, Abhigya, is that I think you are so blessed, to have this knowledge of the rishis, the science of the rishis, to have such a in-depth understanding about Jotish in your life. I am so blessed, myself, because I found such a great guru in Kashi who changed my life, whatever I am today, it is because of him. Prachyam is because of him, because he told me everything about Bharat. I learned, under his feet, for 11 years. And, that thought, stayed with me. The first thought was, that I will preserve everything in my own self, in my own consciousness. And and then I thought, what I should do to, preserve it very effectively. And then I thought, I should, make use of the medium of cinema, the films. And, from being a marine officer, I took a sabbatical and I went to US to study filmmaking. I studied there, and I was in Hollywood, worked with the top people there, with the top studios, only to come back because my guru had said, that I still remember his words. He said, ja to rahe ho, lekin wapas aana hoga. And I knew that, I had to come back and I had to dedicate my life, for this mission of what I'm doing, preserving everything, what is Bharati, all about Bharat, our culture, our civilization, our paramparas, our knowledge systems, through the powerful medium of cinema, through the powerful medium of films. This is what I'm doing, and it is so important to do. So I thought, like I witnessed in US, everything, that we learned was through audio-visual medium. So I thought, that, people don't read books. But if I can make, some world-class films, maybe long format films or even short films, when our youth, when our children, when they will watch it, they will get the essence of it. Their life will get transformed, They will be so enlightened, because of this. So I thought, to bring all these things, through various kind of films that we make. And now we are coming up with, for the first time, on an anime series on Mahabharata.
Wow. Awesome.
And this is absolutely, it is the inspiration of Maharishi Ved Vyas himself, I thought, that Japanese came and they made such a beautiful animation film, on Ramayana. And I thought, that nobody has made, has done such a wonderful work on Mahabharata. So my wonderful team and me, we got together, and I said, this is the inspiration I have. And I know it's a very, very difficult task, because this is like hand illustrations, It is not like AI or, something like that, So I said, and see, they all said, no, sir, we will do it, We are with you, We will, whatever it takes, we will do it. And I'm so happy that from next month onwards, the episodes will start releasing. And, Mahabharata has got everything. It has everything about life, It has, shiksha, dharma, adharma, niti, shastra, maryada, gyan, dharma, everything, So I thought, this can be a great life lesson to all the viewers, who will watch it. And we are keeping it in a way that we are also, making it very relevant to, our understanding of the current times. So something like that, So
That
this is why, it's very important, Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's such an amazing initiative, and I look forward to seeing all the work that comes out of this, and it's also very inspiring. And so the other thing I really liked is the name Prachyam. It's such a befitting name for the work that you're doing. bridging the past and bringing it to the future generations as well. So beautiful. Yeah.
Again, inspiration. Divine
Again,
inspiration.
Exactly. And it's coming straight from your guru, this whole mission. So
Absolutely.
normally missions that come from a guru are something that you have left in your previous birth and you're just restarting. So definitely, there's something big that's going to happen. Yeah.
Absolutely. Because, you see, we are such a great country. And, I've been around the world and I've seen that there is no country which has got, such profound philosophies, such great knowledge traditions, such great rishi paramparas, such a beautiful culture. I mean, we have everything in our country, but I think, since we got everything so easily, we don't value it. So I think, it is very, very important that we preserve what we have got, because what we have is invaluable. Nobody in the world has got this, And I thought, the parampara which has come to us through millennia, through our ancestors, through our great saints, gurus, rishis, it is our duty to preserve that. It is our duty to pass it over, to the next generation, to the children, and also keep it very, very safe, for the coming generations, So I thought, this has to be done. And it's so important because what we have, nobody has in the world, So we have to value that, So that is how, and this is why I thought, and I thank, Raj Modi ji, our US, Canada representative, who was so kind to connect us, And I was talking to him and I said, that the purpose of this podcast, Abhigya, is only this, so that, we can talk about, these sciences of rishis. We can talk about, the great astrology that you have been blessed to have the knowledge of. And even I am blessed, to, know from my guru, to learn it from my guru. And, to bring it to the world, the true perspective of astrology, to make them understand, to make it relatable, for them, to make them, make the best use of it, to make them understand the fundamentals, the basics, not going into, like I always say, and I am going to ask you this next question, and I always say that, every Hindu, no matter you have all these gadgets and you have, all the calendars, but every Hindu should have knowledge of panchang. They should know, what panchang is, what tithi it is, what var it is, what mas it is, what nakshatra it is, what yog it is, what karan it is, So if you can just tell us in short, what panchang is, how important it is, for everyone, and if they want to know every day about today's panchang, where they can go, how they should know the basic things, how it can help them, just to, in short,
Surely, Panchanga is an essential element. It helps us understand where we are in our cycle, in our life, in the scale of time. Where are we Exactly. That is what Panchanga says. It is primarily composed of two elements, the sun and the moon. The relationship between the sun and the moon is literally the whole Panchanga. It's a luni-solar calendar. It's more than a calendar, actually. It tracks you from your birth to the end of life, and it helps you plan things, do the right thing at the right time, etc. For example, if one is born on a Panchami is a very significant tithi. What is a Panchami? Approximately when the sun and the moon are at a 60-degree distance between one another. So each tithi is basically a 12-degree distance between the sun and the moon. So if for example, you're born on a Panchami, it means you were born somewhere around so the distance between the sun and the moon was approximately around 60 degrees at the time of your birth. Here and there about 12 degrees. So that would be a Panchami. And every time such a tithi comes up, it's very significant for you. So you can fast on that day, you can do something auspicious on that day, and you can do more sadhana on that day. So it's very important for spiritual progress. It will be more powerful for you as an individual. And third, Panchanga is made up of 5 primary elements, as the name suggests: Tithi, Vara, Nakshatra, Yoga, Karana. Tithi is what I mentioned at the moment, the distance between the sun and the moon, marking 1 day approximately. Vara is the weekday, and the weekday in our system is calculated in 2 ways. Most people say the midnight to midnight system is a Western idea. That also finds place in some deeper aspects of our calculations, but we don't give it much credence. There is that system. Our system is sunrise to sunrise. So when sunrise begins, a Monday begins technically. Until next day morning sunrise, a Monday still exists. So the influence of a Monday on your life is not just the name Monday. Monday is closely related to Chandra. Why so? Because this has been the pattern since creation, since Srishti, Surya, Chandra, Mangala, it has been like that. So on Mondays, there are certain things that one can do, certain sadhanas which are very helpful for progress. For example, Shiva sadhanas can be done on Monday. As most people know, if you just ask your grandmother, she'll tell you what you should do on each of these days. On Tuesdays, she'll say do Hanuman sadhana. On Wednesdays, chant Vishnu Sahasranamam. On Fridays, chant Lalita Sahasranamam early in the morning. In many villages, even now in South India, because South India, by God's grace, was largely shielded, you have these practices of these mantras being played early in the morning. And even now, when I come to Himachal, I see that the locals still have protected, despite all the mess, the core rituals. And they're doing it in many parts of Bharat, Uttar Pradesh as well. They're doing this protection of these Bharatiya systems, and they're very important primarily for your spiritual progress, but you can also use it for your material good. For example, I use the Panchanga to plan many things, and to plan many things for others as well, and that has worked out pretty well in many ways. That might be brushed off as anecdotal evidence, but still the sages have told us that these particular things work. And from our side, we're also building something that gives the people just the right information about the Panchanga that's necessary for their lives to act upon. I think there's a need of that sort of a Panchanga right now, which is very clear and to the point. For now, you can refer to any of the available Panchangas, find the tithis, plan your days accordingly, and that will be very helpful. Fasting on your birth tithi is probably a very beautiful thing that you can adopt as a practice. And again, I'd like to, you asked a very good question earlier about all the, people who are masquerading as Jyotishis nowadays and giving all sorts of weird pariharas. I heard someone the other day saying that, you need to put 2 tapes of red and blue in your bathroom and you shall be granted great bliss and prosperity in the future. And I was like, really, if you want to suggest this, you could rather do it under some other label. Kindly do not call it Vastu or Jyotisha, because the Manasara, a text which has been written with thousands of verses in beautiful Sanskrit, you are degrading the value of that text. Manushyalaya Chandrika and Bhoja Maharaja has written Samarangana Sutradhara. Such large voluminous texts. Initially, when I was reading some Vastu book and then I studied the text, there was a total disconnect between the two. So my suggestion to anyone who wants to be a Jyotishi, or who wants to advise on Vastu, or who wants to consult a Jyotishi or even find a Vastu Acharya, is that you try to follow things that follow one of the 3 pramanas: Pratyaksha, Aptavakya, or Anumana. So Pratyaksha is basically very clear. If there is scientific evidence, evidence-based work, and you know that this causes this, A causes B, basically how science works, that's a pramana, follow it, right? The whole of research and everything. Second is Aptavakya. In our Samskriti, in our Paddhati, we believe there's something beyond science, and there are some people who have reached that level. So we follow them, and we follow those rishis. As you mentioned initially, there are so many rishis who have worked so hard. Surya Pitamaho Vyasah Vasishtotri Parasharah Kashyapo Narado Gargyah Marichid Madurangiraha Lomashaf Paulishashchaiva Chavano Yavano Bhriguhu. So these are the sages of Jyotisha, which are like, Surya, Brahma, etc., including a Greek sage. Spujidhwaja has also been included. Paulisha, who's from Rome, has also been included. So all of these sages follow their words because they know what has been mentioned. Vasishtha, Atri, Parashara, these are heavyweights, these are divine. So follow them even if it doesn't make sense currently. Let me give a small example. In Jyotisha, we have a 360-degree belt, which is the zodiac, right? The ecliptic belt. Extend it 9 degrees each way and we get the zodiac. That is basically the path of the grahas. Now, the sages have said that there is this particular zone between Vrishika and Dhanu for about 3 degrees and 20 minutes either side, which is extremely dangerous, between Jeshtha Nakshatra and Mula Nakshatra. Remember the name Mula? Mula Nakshatra and Jeshtha ke beech mein, as you very well know, ji, there is something called the Abhukta Mula Sandhi, the Gandanta region. It's called a Riksha Sandhi. The zodiac is divided into 3 parts, and this part the sages for some reason have singled out as being very significant. They say that this is Mula. It's very powerful for spiritual practices. It's the source, it's the root. The literal word means root. And at the same time, Mula also, if a child is born when some graha is transiting through this zone, pariharas would need to be done because it is dangerous for the child. So I was always curious, why have they singled out this one zone? Out of 360 degrees, they could have picked any zone, right? If they were just doing this, if it was just hodgepodge, they could have just done something. They picked up this zone and they called it Mula. Later on, I realized that this zone is basically the location of the center of our galaxy. And that's why they called it Mula, the root, the source. And the center of our galaxy also houses the largest black hole of our galaxy, supermassive black hole, Sagittarius A. Any of the viewers can look it up. It's hardly 1.5 to 3 degrees away from that midpoint. And they called it Mula, the source of the entire galaxy. So it's just amazing to me. And they did not tell us any of this science, right? And the odds of them figuring this out are so low. So they know a lot of things. We will just gradually discover them later. Normally, I also say this, that, humans did not know about thermodynamics or the laws of, the gravitational forces. We did not know nuclear fission or fusion, how exactly they work. But all of these were affecting us throughout history, whether we knew them or not, whether we acknowledged their influence or not. Similarly, perhaps in the coming centuries, someday, someone with their, deep knowledge will be able to find the actual connections between the grahas and will be able to present them in an evidence-based format. That doesn't mean we ignore these core principles, because the sages have written thousands of verses not for no reason, right? Because they were renounced. They were not publishing this like us to be part of the economy. They had given up everything. They had left to their in their Vanaprastha, they have written most of these scriptures. So they must have written it for our good, and hence we must take it with a sense of faith. Maybe not just read and directly apply everything. Read, think, anumana, apply. So that's my humble request to everyone who wants to consult Jyotisha, who wants to learn Jyotisha, become a Jyotishi. One can follow these 3 pramanas. Thank you.
Beautiful. If I have to ask you, Abhigya, definitely, when, these great rishis, they propounded, the Shastra,
Yes.
it would have been, complete in itself. But, through thousands of years, maybe some of it got destroyed, maybe we have, some parts of it, it is like, half-torn book that we have. The Jyotishis, as you rightly said, they have to have, the right qualities, and they have to dedicate their lives, in finding out, what the original scripture would have been, do their own shodha, research, give up their lives, in inquiry, in finding, in meditating upon it, in praying and meditating on those great rishis, So if I had to ask you, what, for example, if we take any, like Brihad Jatak, if we take, what originally it would have been, and what we have got, what is there, which is we have received at present.
Great. So that's an excellent question, in fact. And I had written an article on this recently. I will share it with all the viewers as well, so they can go through it in depth, which actually, goes deeper into this question. The question is authenticity of scriptures. And there's a big problem there. Most of the Puranas that we have right now are highly edited, because somewhere in the late 10th century, as well as, after the 10th century, there was this new habit. Of course, we can blame it on the invaders as well, that did play a role of cultural dilution. But there was also this weird habit, we say, Vinasha Kale Viparita Buddhi, of scholars basically adding their own stuff into the scriptures whenever they found something important, because everything was based on ideology at the time. So if you had to prove your ideology was superior, or if you were right in the argument, and since you being right in the argument determined your place in society, so there was an incentive to go and edit the scriptures. Naturally, humans went ahead with their greed and edited many of the Puranas. Now, it's very hard to discern what was written by the sages, what wasn't written. Some of the great rishis have protected their works very well, and some of them are extensively commented upon, so it's difficult to properly edit or change. For example, the Srimad Bhagavatam is one of them. Very few edits. There are still a few of them, and I've been working on some of that as well recently, identifying them. Srimad Bhagavatam, to a large extent amongst the Puranas, is quite clean, except for 1 or 2 chapters in prose that definitely does not appear to be part of the text. Bhavishya Purana is fully edited. Like, the original one is lost, and people have just added whatever they want there. So if you read it, it's very, very interesting. In Jyotisha as well, the Brihat Parashara Hora Shastra has 3 or 4 different declinations. Why? Because it is a communication between Parashara and Maitreya. It is a conversation that his students have recorded later. And his students can be anyone, right? Maitreya can be anyone in the family of Maitreya. So they have added certain chapters, removed certain chapters. Later on, scholars came, edited things. The words are themselves not changed. Normally what they do when they edit is that they remove an entire verse and add another one. And if you learn Sanskrit very well, you can identify where, that there is a sort of break in terms of the author's intent and the next verse. That's a very good way. Here we have to apply Anumana. That's why Anumana is given a high position in Pramanas as well in our scriptures. We have to apply logical deduction. So if you see 2 concepts not really applying properly, you have to critically evaluate them. And especially with texts like Brihat Parashara Hora. But with the Brihat Jataka, it's a different story, because it has several commentaries straight from the time of Varahamihira. And I love to quote one of the verses of Varahamihira. I forgot the exact verse, but it's so beautiful. He's one of the authors. The reason why I love his texts is that he writes like a human being, not just as a sage sitting, like completely apart from you, but he writes in a very relatable fashion. So I was reading this in which he has said that, what does it matter if Brahma says that Tuesdays are inauspicious, or if I say that Tuesdays are inauspicious? The fact remains the same. If Tuesdays are inauspicious and that has been established, if you read that from Brahma's text or my text, it doesn't really matter, because the fact is a fact, right? And once it is established, even if a parrot repeats that Tuesdays are inauspicious, it is still to be taken as correct. So he's written some interesting verses like this, which I definitely recommend reading for anyone who loves Sanskritam. So the interesting thing here is to critically evaluate scriptures. Brihat Jataka is very pure. Any student of Jyotishi can go through it end to end. Brihat Samhita is also quite pure. Varahamihira has written 2 or 3 other texts that are lost now. Brahma Siddhanta, etc. is lost. Paulusha Siddhanta is no longer applicable. So one has to critically evaluate those also. And secondly, Surya Siddhanta. directly applying Surya Siddhanta to Jyotisha is not a very good idea for several reasons. Because one, the system is based on a formula, and you need to follow the logic in the Surya Siddhanta, but it's not ideal to apply the direct formula for any Jyotishi. Some people do this these days because no formula can truly predict where a graha is going to be in the future. Surya Siddhanta gets it the closest. No ephemeris in the world in the past 5,000, 10,000 years, no culture has been able to come that close to reality as much as the Surya Siddhanta without the help of machinery. But now that we have machinery and we are able to accurately predict the movement of a graha to a large extent, we should not be using archaic formulas. That's another thing. So in Jyotisha, to answer your question, you need to critically evaluate the authenticity of a text by consulting scholars of the field. Next, you should also apply logical deduction, see where you're biased. There are hundreds of cognitive biases. And meditation is wonderful because you can discern some of the things that are so confusing on surface level can be revealed to you. As you very well said, meditate on the sages themselves.
Correct. One question, if I had to ask, there are so many people who want to pursue the path of spirituality, but they're not very clear about it. If astrologically, if you have to, explain that, from the astrological point of view, looking at one's chart, what bhav and what graha should be evaluated in order to find out, what kind of spiritual path they should take, what kind of isht, they should worship in their lives. So if little bit, if you can tell about that. Huh?
That's a beautiful question. The spiritual path to a large extent can be revealed by the chart. The first thing is to look at the 5th house, which is the Purva Punya. So all the different births in the past that have led to this very moment, that have led to this Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, Karana Sharira, it reveals a few things there. I'm not an expert on Vedanta, nor do I profess to be a guru, but what I can say is that when you look at your chart and you see these combinations, you can also identify when you will find your guru, and your guru will lead you to your spiritual destination for this lifetime and beyond. So some of us have still not found our gurus. We hope to, but lucky people like you who have found their gurus, there's no need of even looking at your chart beyond that point. You just need to do the right thing and follow the Dharma, and they might look into your chart and tell you what to do. Or you may use Jyotisha if your guru tells you to look into it. If you don't have a guru yet, then you use Jyotisha to actively become a better person, to avoid the pitfalls materially as well. Jyotisha is the bridge between material things and spirituality. So it allows you to plan your life also and identify your spiritual path. The core purpose of Jyotisha is to make you conscious of karma. All of our texts say the value of karma. Our parents, grandparents, everyone tells us good karma, bad karma. But where do we Oh, sorry. My apologies. So we get a practical example of karma through Jyotisha. And looking at your 5th house, looking at Guru's position, you can see your position. And even better, there's another technique that is used. The farthest graha in your chart is actually your Atmakaraka throughout the zodiac. The two methods of interpreting this, for those of you who know Jyotisha, one is the farthest graha within the Rashi, which becomes your Atmakaraka. The other method is the farthest graha in the entire zodiac. So the farthest graha in the Rashi becomes your Atmakaraka for this birth. Through Anumana, you can think of it that way. The farthest graha in the Rashi becomes your Atmakaraka for probably several births. So identifying that Atmakaraka can help you find the goals. So for example, if you see Surya being the Atmakaraka, you worship light and Surya, you worship Shiva, Murtitve Parikalpitasya Shabhrataha. And if it is Chandra, you start to worship Mata, Parvati, Durga, so on and so forth. If it's Mangala, you worship Narasimha, Kartikeya. Other forms, you worship fire itself, you worship gradually, you scale up that way. And if it's Buddha, then it becomes, if you you can go deeper into dhyana, introspection, and you can worship Lord Vishnu, you can worship Buddha as well. Worship in the sense intense and devotional contemplation and association is worship, basically. Worship does not just mean puja, but that puja is essential for worship, in my humble opinion at least. And if it's Guru, then you worship Dattatreya and Dakshinamurti. For me personally, Dattatreya and Dakshinamurti are just beautiful. Every time, life gets a little complicated or there is some sort of confusion, I go back to Dakshinamurti Stotram by Adi Shankara. 100% recommend for anyone to listen to that. It's beautiful. And the version by the Sanskrit channel is really good. You might have come across the YouTube channel, the Sanskrit channel. I think you should bring him on sometime in your podcast as well. He's done amazing work for Sanskrit. So the Dakshinamurti Stotram, if Guru is the Karaka, and if it's Shukra, then again it's Lakshmi Mata. It's the more benevolent forms of Mata, Shri herself. These can be in the form of an idol or in the form of a bija mantra. Several organizations, if you go to the right Guru, they'll give you a bija mantra. Shani, it would be Kala himself, Kala Bhairava, Shiva. And again, Venkatachalapati, Hanumanji. All of this would be Shani, depending on some specific quirks. And Rahu and Ketu, Rahu would be again Lord Shiva. Rahu would also be Sarpa, the great snake, which symbolizes the Kundalini energy of the body, and basically worshipping Shiva and his Nagas more than enough. Ketu, it would be Lord Ganesha on a basic level. So Ganapati Atharva Shirsha. If you read the Ganapati Atharva Shirsha, it's just beautiful. And today morning I was chanting it, and sometimes it's just amazing. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing such an insight, with our audience. Abhigya, I'm enjoying this conversation so much, and there are so many questions coming in my mind, but I know there's a time constraint. But so I will just come quickly, to something which I thought, should also be discussed in this discussion with you. Maharishi Ved Vyas has mentioned many astronomical and astrological observations in Mahabharata. If you can just touch upon it a little bit and tell us, that what were, especially those conjunctions, planetary conjunctions that he has mentioned, which led, to that great war, which I call it as really the first world war, of our planet. So, what were those, planetary conjunctions that he has specifically mentioned? And then we are going to connect that, with the present times.
Wonderful. So that's amazing. This is an entirely, deep subject in itself. The Mahabharata I use for two things. One is, of course, these combinations. The other one is to find a sort of anchoring point to say, this is when this particular yuga has begun, the Kali Yuga. So the Mahabharata texts do give us some interesting thing that way. So one would be to identify the correct date of the Kali Yuga. So that is something that we are working on at the moment, and the conclusion is very, very close. It's definitely not too far away. We'd say minus 3101 years technically, which is 3102 BC. January 22nd is when we cast it around for Ujjain, we cast a chart. That is one thing. And there's a lot of discussion going on the specifics of Mahabharata dating. There are many experts who have dedicated their life to it, and they regularly debate on this, and that is quite amusing to me. So I'm not an expert on the exact dating schemes of the Mahabharata, since there's a wide variety of opinions. I'll be able to provide an opinion on that once I put everything together. But the interesting combinations that I can recollect would be the back-to-back eclipses that occurred within a single lunar month that have been mentioned. And then there were also, there was this Rohini Bheda by Shani, which is a recurring theme in not only the Ramayana, but also the Mahabharata. Rohini Nakshatra is a very interesting nakshatra. It is considered the most important of all nakshatras in terms of just the physical nature of it. And whenever Shani basically passes Rohini, it creates some sort of disturbance. And I cross-checked this over history. I did this research a few months ago, but I don't remember the specifics, but I do remember that there were several major global events that took place every time it passed through for no apparent reason. Like just out of nowhere, there was something very silly that happened and resulted in a lot of deaths. So similarly, Rohini Bheda happens every 30 years. Rohini transit happens every 30 years, Gochara. But Rohini Bheda is something very different. And then Vyasa Muni was talking about Shani being in Rohini. He was talking about Bheda, which means passing through the asterism, the constellation itself. So at that time, the orientation must have been such that the Yogatara and another Yogatara between that Shani must have been passing. That is probably what he was talking about, and that is catastrophic, which is why most of this happened. I believe even in the Ramayana, there are descriptions of Rohini Bheda and Dasharatha Muni going to plead with Shani to avoid harm and destruction. I believe so. Dasharatha Krita Shani Stotram comes there. And so that was an interesting combination. Guru was in Vishakha. Now, I truly don't know why Guru in Vishakha is so significant for this, but I'm still trying to understand that. Again, Vishakha is an asterism that essentially means polarization and debranching, right? Vishakha. So it can be taken as Vikriti or Vishesha, that V part of the word. So it can be that sort of, putting the world in two camps, two groups, two branches. So that must have been the intent, but it's probably something deeper. And Rohini and Shani is a fairly straightforward thing. The back-to-back eclipses are super interesting. I think this is an entirely new subject itself. Perhaps you could, we could do something and find the truth here. Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. Would love to do that, as you were explaining, I think visually, I'm a visual person, I'm a storyteller. So I was, all those things were coming visually as an animation to me,
Wow. Wonderful,
and I was thinking, that how, this can be explained, to our audience visually, we can surely do that, Now,
awesome.
yeah, amazing. I wanted to ask you, is there a parallel between, the planetary conjunctions, configurations that are mentioned in Mahabharata and, what is, at present now in the skies? Is there, something which is common, which is, parallel, which is close, if you have to compare both of them?
To some extent, yes, but I think we have to wait a few more years for that combination to play out. But it's still not that similar. That was at the end of a yuga and the start of a yuga. So it's like really, really different. The scale is different, but the conditions are somewhat similar. So 2029, it accelerates, 2030 further, and then in 2035 as well. So these are three important years. 2022 timeframes, 2029, 2028 end to 2030, and 2033 to 2036. So these are two timeframes that have some resemblance to those combinations, but again, they're unique in their own way, in the sense that here what's happening is that there was an opposition of Guru and Shani even then during the Mahabharata war, and that is happening again. And the last time this happened, there was a lot of chaos. Rahu and Ketu are also coming together with Guru and Shani this time. So yeah, the world is going to change massively. And on the positive side, of course, probably space travel and other things will become more possible. Yeah, we're looking forward to a good and bad future, but it's like very fast. Yeah.
And what kind of change, the world is going to witness? Especially if we are talking in relation with Mahabharata, are we going to see another big war, Can it trigger a big war?
Yes, it will. Yes, it will definitely trigger a big war, because astrologically speaking, absolutely yes. I do not have much of a doubt, but I tend to combine it with some logical facets as well. That's where normally we can zero down, and we also have scope for going wrong. So logically, whenever asset accumulation hits peaks, war is very much likely. So asset accumulation is currently hitting an all-time high, the concentration of assets in the hands of a few. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but all I'm insinuating is that when that happens, the chances of war drastically increase, because jealousy is a natural human trait. Jealousy or the feeling of injustice, both go hand in hand. Jealousy and the feeling of injustice. And the world is currently going through a mix of both. So it is very much likely to happen. It's almost guaranteed. When is the question? And Jyotisha answers the question saying it's more likely just after 2033. But one part of it is likely before 2030 as well. And 2027, we are relatively safe, but just another theater is going to open up. Economic recession wise, I don't see any major issues except in mid 2027. There is a likely towards the end of 2027 for a correction. I wouldn't call it a recession because the world has already added trillions of dollars. So even a correction would not technically be called a recession. So once a recession of some sort, a correction is in motion, certain countries which are currently at the helm of the global order, for example, the US, will try to actively suppress the growth of other countries. They've been doing it, but their pace will increase after 2028. Every country in that polar position does that. They basically try to suppress the other power. It's just Rajaniti. And but if you have a crazy person at the helm, it's just worse. And looking at the current leadership of the US and looking at the charts, at least of the president, it is really not a very sane chart. But at the same time, we're going to have, as I mentioned, a very good party, and then things are going to turn down from there. And that's an opportunity for us. There's no need to be fearful of whatever is going to happen. One can be very optimistic, especially if you're working hard and if you're true to yourself, and if you're living in Bharata now. It's good to be optimistic.
Wonderful. And Abhigya, if I had to ask you, is the world, or has the world entered into a new era, which is very different, from what people have seen in the past?
Very true, very true. It has 100%. In fact, as I mentioned, we haven't seen something like 2020 since 1206. So the next 400 years are going to be defined by just these 20 years. So I was speaking about this even at the Asia Blockchain Summit in 2024, and I said that these 20 years, and especially the next 2 or 3 years, will basically define the next 2 years will define the next 20 years, and the next 20 years will define the next 400 years. So we are living through a tremendous period, and that's why the advancements in AI didn't really surprise me initially. But then when the recent models were released, that really surprised me, because I tend to be very skeptical about things. But when I saw the kind of developments in the past few months, it totally makes sense. We are in a completely new era.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes.
AI is going to change the paradigm, which nobody has imagined. As I said, that at Prachyam, we keep a very close watch, on the technologies, which are, coming prevalent now, and which are also in the pipeline. So just, when AI had come, Prachyam came up with a series, because then I thought, that with the help of this technology, I can make a series. And the series was the history of invasions on Bharat. It is there on our OTT. And it was based on the AI. We were the first studio in the country, to actually, make a series when AI had just come.
Very
And,
nice.
since then, we have, really taken the, help of the technology of AI. And now, the technology which is in the pipeline, I can't tell you, it is out of the world. People cannot imagine, what is going to come, especially in our industry. What people are working on is absolutely out of the world, unimaginable, so much change, it is going to bring. So definitely it's a very interesting times that we are living in. I wanted to ask you that spiritually, in all the era that we have entered, how, the people are going to benefit spiritually, people who are spiritual aspirants, who are treading this path of spirituality, how these times, the coming times, are going to be for them?
Yes. So astrologically speaking, it is going to be very special, because the more you see the world accelerating outside, it's a beautiful verse in the Bhagavad Gita. How can I forget it? It is said that the day for the unenlightened is the night.
Correct,
for the
correct,
enlightened,
correct.
and the night
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
for
And
the enlightened.
correct.
For the
Yeah.
unenlightened. What's the verse again? Oh, good Lord. So yes, so basically that is when you see things going this fast, with like in a centrifuge kind of situation. So it is going to help the spiritualist. It gives you a better view of the world, obviously. So there is a story of Narada, very interesting story, in fact, where Narada says that, "Oh, Bhagavan Vishnu, I am your greatest devotee. I truly do not. I never forget you." And then Lord Krishna says, "Oh, is it okay? Let's go on this little walk." And they keep walking and walking, and suddenly, somewhere in the middle of an open field, right? This is all created by the Maya of Krishna. He asks Narada to go find water, because he says he's thirsty. So he says, "Narada, please go and find water and get me a glass of water, a pitcher of water." So Narada goes off in search of water. He finds a little village very far away, keeps walking. And then he enters the village. He walks on the streets. He asks each home. Finally, he finds a home where they're willing to give him water and stuff. And that person gives him water, the farmer there. He sees the farmer's daughter, and he is enchanted by that daughter, and they agree to marry. They have a family. He forgets about giving the water to Krishna. Krishna is, he forgets about the whole reason he was sent there. He was sent to get water, but then he gets married. He has a family, he has children several years apart, and he has land, he has everything. His agriculture is going on very well. He becomes very rich, so on and so forth. And then one day, a huge storm comes, and it tears through his village, and the trees and everything collapse. And then the water reaches his home. In front of his eyes, his wife and kids are washed away. And he cries in despair, saying, "Bhagavan, why did you do this to me? I did not deserve any of this." And he cries. And then Lord Sri Krishna says, I believe it was something like, "Where is the water? I sent you to get water." No? And then he says all of this was basically an illusion. So during these times of tribulations, we could just, we shouldn't be insensitive, of course, but at a deeper level, we should realize that this is Maya, and that helps us go inward. It is obviously sad in that situation of Narada that he lost his wife and children. At that Maya level, the pain, everything was very real. But at a deeper level, it was not actually real. And I also am not enlightened to understand that. But, what I can say is that people who are enlightened enough will find this era very helpful for their spiritual progress.
And Abhigya, if I have to ask you, that how, the youth of our country, and you are so young yourself, should prepare themselves for, the coming times, for the future, for this era in which the world has entered, which is again full of uncertainties, which is also going to be very interesting, but also it is also going to have lot many ups and downs, and we know that astrologically, how should they prepare themselves for this?
I think one would be for the youth. It would be very helpful to own a little bit of land. So I'm of course not saying that their technical skills are totally invalid. That is a very fringe opinion, which is becoming more mainstream day by day, scaring people, saying if you study math, it's not going to be useful anymore. If you study computer science and other things, I think it's still going to be useful in many ways, at least for the next few years as AI grows. And especially at the scale that India can deliver, AI to be able to match those costs, it's probably still going to be difficult. The resources and everything else, it'll probably start to get a little expensive. So we can still deliver something like that at scale. So I would not recommend panicking for the youth and, but it's good to have some land, because if AI is is basically catering to all of these advanced technological needs of human beings, it still relies on those physical facets. It does rely on resources, and humans currently do control most of our resources. India has a lot of those resources, so we must ensure we protect those resources and ensure that the people are compensated for the use of those resources, which will be a kind of a fair UBI to an extent, universal basic income, at least for us. And secondly, ownership of land for agriculture and cultivation is an excellent thing. I believe every family in India should have a little bit of land. It would be very problematic not to have that. So families are looking to sell land and moving into concentrated cities. There's an age-old adage, but I would still say keep your land. And if you don't have land, go and get something in a good place where there's water and stuff, and take care of the land and actually produce something out of it in a very good way, using precision agriculture or whatever else you can, and maintain soil health as well in a scientific manner. This will keep your future secure, in my humble opinion, because humans will always need food. And even if AI is farming for us, it needs land. And if we are able to control land, that is pretty good. If we do not buy and control land now as the people, hedge funds and multinational corporations will purchase large amounts of land, because then they will use AI to basically mass employ AI within the agriculture space, and we won't be needed then. And if we're not needed, we don't matter. And if we don't matter, obviously, the chances of human survival in the longer run are limited. So humans need to take control of some of these resources. And in India, you still have plenty of time. It's not like other countries where arable land is highly controlled by the government or by private entities. We still have a lot of time before something happens. That's one. And else, of course, developing advanced skills would be great. Working in the mental health space is excellent, because as all of this happens, the human need for mental health is very human. AI will not be able to totally relate to it, and a human actually dealing in helping people with mental health is going to be great. So understanding these interpersonal skills is going to still be valuable. Being able to communicate with a person, understand their feelings, help them out, will still be a uniquely human skill. And I've seen amazing humans who are capable of doing that, which artificial intelligence really can only emulate in words, but not in concept. So I think those are a few things. I can't think of many others, but I think you will be able to probably think of some more things which you'd like to suggest viewers.
I always say, that pursue the path of Dharma and do sadhana in your life,
Awesome.
which is going to protect you, from everything, all the uncertain times, I think the divine protection, the divine guidance, every youth should, learn to follow that in life, that is very important.
I agree.
So that was, so a brilliant, some advice that you gave. The last question, and before we move on to the question answer session, is that in all this, what is happening, with the world entering into a new era, with all the astrological conjunctions which indicated in 2020, and now we are witnessing all this, and as we move on into these times, how do you see Bharat? Where do you see Bharat globally, geopolitically, how it is going to position itself? What are the great things, which will happen with Bharat? And also, what are the challenges that Bharat will need, to face, to address, and should, most probably take, some proactive action, about this?
I think it is... So the challenges we're going to face are definitely numerous. 2026 has already been a challenging year so far. 2027 is slated to be better. 2033 onwards is really good. And I think the best things to focus on is the upliftment of the poor during this time frame, which is already being done. And I think some people wanted to ask about the impact of AI on the Indian IT sector. I think the IT sector will be able to evolve quickly enough to not be eviscerated by this megalith. So let's say that things. I'm quite optimistic, and there's this beautiful book by Nassim Nicholas Taleb, a celebrated mathematician, who says the book is basically skin in the game. So instead of telling people what to do, I'll just say what I am doing at the moment instead of advising others. I personally am fully invested in the country in every single way possible. I do believe in the country, not just in a jingoistic fashion, but logically as well. And secondly, I have followed the same advice our family has followed, as I'm saying here, to purchase land and keep it, and take care of a few cows and something like that. So we are doing that at our end as well. And my mother is very, very particular about these things. And also, the best thing is to hone your attention span. The attention span of Indians on average is declining to an extent, but it's still better than other countries for sure. It is declining, but it's better than other countries, and the government is doing something to increase the attention span, but it has to be more, and the people need to participate in that by reducing short form content consumption. I myself was very tormented by this proliferation of social media on mobiles. Like, anyone who owns a mobile invariably has Instagram and WhatsApp and such things. So that cuts down on your attention span, and I worked on it over the last few months myself, and it has yielded very good results. And I think any youth can really work on that, and that will really help with prefrontal cortex development. And if you have really good willpower and prefrontal cortex development in these early stages of life, then it's not going to be difficult to tackle big problems going forward, and that's a national issue. And of course, the biggest opportunity is agriculture, in my humble opinion. And agriculture obviously does require a lot of input. India, I'll just add one very interesting thing which I've been studying recently. It's not conclusive, but I believe India will play a major intervention role in the Middle East, more so closer to the Red Sea region. And this will happen more so just around 2033. And it will be to the benefit of India, even if initially it sounds like a very dangerous idea. India will have to do this at some point. We'll need control of the Red Sea region. And if you look at all the global partners who are currently global players who are playing in the Middle East at the moment, none of them are truly trusted by the local populations, whereas India has a better reputation in the UAE, as well as in Iran, as well as around the Red Sea in Ethiopia. And Eritrea as a country, I have my doubts about it. So the Red Sea will become another inflection point. And if India, grabs that opportunity at the right time and establishes its own bases around the region as well, then it will not be a problem for us to source these inputs. What I'm speaking right now might seem like very outlandish and very silly, because as Bharatiyas, we don't really establish outposts, is what some people might say. But in a peaceful manner, to prevent violence and for the benefit of the massive number of people we have in our country, we need to go outside and engage in some fashion. And we did this in the past. During the times of the Cholas, we did this. During the times of the Guptas, we did this to protect our interests, and we will do it again. Because if foreign powers are preventing us from getting what is needed for us to feed hundreds of millions of people and their hungry stomachs and their aspirations, we need to do it. And I think people will do it. And a nation of 1.4 billion people will definitely go in that direction. I see India becoming more meritocratic, especially post 2029. There will be that shift as well, as the general population will realize that it's good to give the steering wheel to transparency and to meritocracy instead of to fake social justice, in the kleptocracy in the name of social justice. So I think that will happen after 2029. I'm pretty confident.
Very well said. Beautiful. So I think it's time, that we, take some questions from the audience. And I also want to tell the audience, Abhigya, I want to tell you especially that, what a great session this was. I really enjoyed it. I'm sure, the audience who are watching it from around the world also are loving this session. And I also would like to tell them that, we will have these conversations, once in a while. We will plan it, and we will have, the discussions around, such topics around astrology like we had today. in order to give them, whatever perspective, whatever understanding that we have, of things, and that can, help them in any way. So, Abhigya, we are going to take a short break here, and in this break, you can watch, the Mahabharata teaser that we are going to make. And after this short break, we are going to meet again, and we are going to take the questions from the audience.
एक समय था जब धर्म और अधर्म के संघर्ष ने पृथ्वी को अस्त व्यस्त कर दिया। जब न्याय की गुहार और धर्म की पुकार एक ही स्वर में गूंज उठी।
जहाँ स्त्री का अपमान होता है वहाँ विनाश निश्चित है।
ये कथा है शौर्य की।
जब अधर्म बढ़ता है तब धर्म को स्वयं खड़ा होना पड़ता है।
जो मनुष्य का धर्म सर्वोच्च बन गया।
क्या यही मेरा धर्म है? अपने ही लोगों का वध करना।
कर्म से भागना कायरता है अर्जुन।
ये कथा है समर्पण और परीक्षाओं की।
युगों से सोई
यही है धर्म भूमि, जहां हर निर्णय एक युग की दिशा मोड़ देता है।
बड़ी कहानी शंख बजे रण सजे।
मेरी पहचान
वीरों का
युद्ध तय करेगा।
ये है महाभारत।
Beautiful. That was amazing, and I think that's a lot of hard work. Actually, I think it's more difficult than casting live action, people to act it out, and wonderful.
Very difficult. I know it's very challenging. I don't know. I mean, many people told me, why are you doing this? I mean, don't embark on this journey. It's going to be very tough for you. I said, I can't help it, It's an adesh, it's an inspiration,
Amazing.
And also,
yeah.
And I wanted, I wanted to keep it free for everyone, So,
Really?
not behind any payment walls, So I said, let us try and, initiate a small crowdfunding. If people would like to donate to that, it's going to help me, to make it even more better. So let us see, we are going to, yeah.
It will happen. I'm pretty confident it will happen. I'm pretty sure. Yes.
Thank you so much. So we will start with the questions now. So the first question is there on your screen.
Yes. This is on my. That's the one on my screen.
Yeah, it's on the screen. Can you read it out?
Kindly tell when Sanatan Dharma will end in India and Islam will take over with all the chaos going over in India. Prabhuji, thank you for the question, but don't worry. Sanatana Dharma is only growing. You see people like Chaturvedi Mahodaya ji are doing a lot of efforts. We have a government who is trying its best and who is also achieving a few things. We have people who are holding the government accountable. We have a largely nationalistic society, everything kept aside. So don't really worry about it. And Islam isn't going to take over in the country. It's on decline since the 1600s. Population numbers don't matter as much as power. And there is no Islamic empire, if you think of it, in the last 400 years. There is no Islamic empire. It is all little confederacies that are dependent on other countries, fiefdoms, basically. There used to be the Turkish Empire, the Ottomans. There used to be the Mughals. There used to be all of these different massive powers who used to control large percentages of global GDP and move economies and countries. that doesn't exist now, if you think of it. After the Ottoman defeat, Mughals got wiped out, and now there's just 2 or 3 small confederacies totally dependent on the US world order. So Islam penetrating deeper into India and affecting people's lives is something we must actively prevent as policy. But it is not something that's going to happen. It's done and dusted for a large part. But we must be very vigilant though. Yes. So, क्या astrology events predict करती हैं या सिर्फ windows of heightened possibility? Very good question. It is. We would say that Jyotisha is like a translucent window into your destiny. It is not simply heightened possibility, it's a translucent window. You really don't know your true destiny, but you can chart a little path as to the most likely situation, which you can call windows of heightened possibility. So the philosophy I follow in life to go by this is basically optimistic determinism. Let's put it that way. I do believe in destiny, but since no one truly knows destiny, and I do not know my destiny, I work in such a manner, I hope to work in such a manner in the best interests of mine and people around me as much as I can. So I'm very optimistic about the future, and at the same time, I know that there is destiny there. So you can predict events with Jyotisha. Yes, you can predict events. Most of the astrologers say that they've done some black magic on us, and only a puja, I'm sorry, puja which they can do can overcome the effects of the black magic. I feel this is a cult way to earn money. Actually, you're right, it is a cult way, and pardon me, I have a mild laughing disorder. I tend to laugh at small triggers.
Me too.
So, yeah. So, well, I have noticed a lot of this black magic thing going around. It is mostly a hypochondriac attitude towards life. It's very simple. If something bad happens in your life, it's because of your own previous birth karma. If there was any intermediary in between, that was also because of your own karma in a previous birth. So the first thing is to just accept it. Radical acceptance, titiksha. I was listening to this lecture of Gurudev Ji the other day, and his idea of titiksha was very beautiful. And there are several other great yogis who have talked about titiksha, radical acceptance. So when you feel that something of this sort is happening, simply say, yeah, that is the nature of things. People are envious. People might tend to wish bad for me, but the thing is that from within there should always be a well-wishing attitude for everyone. This tantra thing that's going on right now, of doing vashikaran, trying to malign someone else and doing something on their name, first of all, it's useless. None of that works. And secondly, because we are in a completely different yuga where people don't even know what's going to happen in the next second. They're not capable of doing all of those rituals. And secondly, the very fact that some people are doing those rituals shows the level of tamas that has come into them. So completely avoid that. If you feel someone is doing that to you, just do your sadhanas. Just focus on your personal sadhana. None of this is going to affect you 100%. 100%. Only your karma has an influence on you. Yeah. And don't encourage people who scare you on this. Yeah. Many conflicts are unfolding globally. Does Vedic astrology indicate a period of global instability? Yes, indeed. Accelerationism does come with instability. Yes. I'm 46 and I have Kala Sarpa Yoga. I'm out of a job these days. One of the astrologers advised me to get a Kala Sarpa Puja done every 4 years. I also heard that the Kala Sarpa is not applicable after 40. So technically here, they're probably right. You should visit one of the Punya Kshetras. Again, if one asks for scientific evidence here, I'm not the right person to ask. But I would recommend visiting one of the main Punya Kshetras associated with Naga, if this happens, because Kala Sarpa is not something documented in traditional astrological texts. It is a combination out of inference, and it makes sense because when all the grahas are right within the belt of the north and south node of the moon, they kind of locked, and I've seen this effect in many cases. I was a skeptic of it myself, but it's kind of real. It's not that scary either. There are many people who have been very successful with the Kala Sarpa yoga. So no need to worry much. There might be another yoga which is also amplifying it in your chart. So perhaps visit Kukke Shri Subramanya Swami temple, meditate there, Find out the birth tithi of yours. Go to a gaushala where they're taking care of sick and injured animals and donate to them and help those animals with medicine and whatever else you can. Venus and Jupiter are seen together these days, and does it have any significance? When Venus and Jupiter come too close to one another, it results in confusion. When they start to part from one another, also it results in confusion and prosperity combined. Shukra and Guru are two opposite ideological sides, but in terms of outcome, they are very close to one another. But in terms of the process, they're very far away. So there'll be confusion initially, and then there will be prosperity simultaneously. So this is happening, as we can see, a lot of back and forth talks and whatnot. The world is kind of unstable, but there's also a lot of prosperous work going on in the background. Yes. G. Can geopolitical forecasting become more scientific through public? Yes, in fact, if I correctly understood, yes, you can do scientific research into Jyotisha and geopolitics, because Jyotisha is also dependent on Desha, Kala and Patra. I've explained this elsewhere in detail, why Jyotisha, the chart that you're looking at, is not absolute. The absolute understanding of past, present and future is only available to Trikalagyanis. Jyotishis have to infer with a combination of Desha, Kala and Patra, that is context, and with content. You have to combine the two. And using the two, that is a geopolitical modeling engine of some sort and a Jyotisha model, you should be able to chart the most likely zones of conflict next, etc. And we are working on that. And of course, we welcome public participation in this project. Question: Osho, Guru Nanak Dev Ji and the Bhagavad Gita are all said to live in the present, not past or the future. Yet we see past to know the future. What is the right way as per our texts? Beautiful thing. In fact, Prarabdham Jnatva Kalam Naya Mahamate. There's a verse, something similar to this, which says that, once you know your prarabdha, just accept it and simply follow your dharma. What is right at that moment, what is right at that moment should be followed. And understanding the future is very, very helpful in this regard. The scriptures also state that for a materially motivated person, the world is like a dark path. Every one of us, basically. I truly don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but I have a basic idea. I can use that idea to make my future better. And using Jyotisha, if you use Jyotisha correctly, you won't be so worried about the future. You'll in fact be more calm and more peaceful about the future. I, for one, very humbly state that I am not really worried about future in such a manner that I think of it every single day. Of course, I do plan things, but that doesn't occupy my mind. At the same time, I've seen people who have no inkling of Jyotisha, but who are obsessed about the future. So, in fact, if you use Jyotisha correctly, you won't be so obsessed about the future. Yeah. Hello. I would want to ask which countries are likely to emerge as major global powers in the coming decade. Is India one of them? Yes, India is one of them. The structure is going to be a little different compared to the other countries. There will be a major upliftment of the poor, and at the same time, the intelligent people within the country will be rapidly becoming more and more successful, and so will the people who are holding assets. Pretty straightforward assumption, specifically land. So within India, there is going to be that schism. So in order to lessen that gap, because again, gaps are normal in material life, we shouldn't adopt a communist and socialist perspective here. There will be a gap, but the gap shouldn't be so much. That's the role of the society, to encourage people to all be productive and to all find a way, eke out a living for themselves. To encourage society to work hard should be the way to equalize gaps, instead of forcing everyone to not work or work lazily or to give up agency. So I think India will be able to rise. The other countries are going to be perhaps certain countries in Africa, but unfortunately not the core African population themselves. populations from other countries will move to Africa and work together with its local population to make it successful. Individually, the local populations will find it hard to do it. This is not a racist assumption, it's just a purely logical one from an astrological perspective. Yes. And yeah, people predetermine the date and time of birth because a lot of babies are now delivered through C-section. Would charts of those babies be accurate? In a way, they would still be, because the thing is that if the parents were to have that sort of education and that sort of mindset in which they thought of doing something in such an unnatural manner, planning the date and time of the child, etc., then it must be the destiny of that child. Normally, this is not considered good. First of all, C-section births are considered kind of slightly inauspicious. And for such individuals, you would basically trace their moment of conception directly using their chart. That's a particular technique that is used. And either way, you really can't control certain aspects of the chart, even by controlling the date and the time of the birth, because you really can't push it more than a month. Most of the planetary positions are the same throughout a month or so. And the time of birth can just change their position with respect to your local horizon. So it doesn't make a very big difference, and it will still have an influence. Yes, it would still be accurate, but I would rely more on the Nisheka chart for this.
Okay.
What do you think about Indian leadership in the future? Will there be a Dharmic or Abrahamic leader in this country in the coming decades? A more Dharmic leader is more likely, but a more sharp leader going forward in terms of action. And more than leader, the population will evolve to demand more from a leader. Currently, that is slightly lacking in the country. The population is not very demanding, but we are seeing that gradually increase. The population has to be demanding in such a manner not to incite upheaval, but to expect more from governance. That's absolutely important for any governance model. So that will happen, and the leader will be dharmic, but don't worry about any Abrahamic issues that way, but one should still be vigil, of course. Yeah. What role does Shani play in major global crisis? Shani basically is a karaka of grief. There's no other graha that has been given this holy duty of giving grief. And anything in the world that results in grief, Shani definitely has an influence there. Anything that changes our perspective of time, Shani has an influence there. Anything that is related to action, Shani has an influence. So almost everywhere, Shani has an influence. It normally tends to increase cynicism. And cynicism is the first step to distrust, and distrust leads to conflict. So Shani does play a role there. 2, Shani's main kartavya is to give the effects of one's negative karma. So it's probably the holiest graha in that regard. Yes. Yes. Can astrology predict the rise and fall of nations? Nations, yes, but indirectly through land. Nations are made up of land, people, and ideology. Jyotisha can predict the rise and fall of land, people, and ideology. Ideology itself is an entity, if you think of it. It is an independent entity. It depends on the people, but otherwise it can be considered an entity on its own. So astrology predicts a rise and fall of land, people, and ideologies. That combined together becomes a nation. So you can technically chart out which tract of land, which cross-section of the globe is going to be prosperous, which section is not going to be so prosperous. And naturally, people just align to experience their karma in such places. For example, if an earthquake is supposed to happen, Providence arranges it in such a manner that the people who are supposed to be impacted by the earthquake happen to be there at the correct time and place. But this view must not stop us from being compassionate. That's another subject for another day. Yeah. Will there be a war between Europe and Russia? Frankly, this is a question that has stumped me to an extent, because I've been studying this, but every time it gets more complicated. There is already a war between Europe and Russia, technically. I think the question is about a full-fledged open war. Yes, but not to the scale of World War II. There will be a war, not to the scale of World War II. And the eastern parts of Europe can start to develop faster. Russia is largely underdeveloped. Russia hasn't really seen a period of prosperity in 400 years or so right now. So it's always lost its time. So I think its time to shine is still there, more so towards the eastern parts of Russia this time. And there are many reasons for that, logically also. I mean, it controls large tracts of land. So if you apply the same logic I was speaking about earlier, Russia is in a good position for the very longer run, but with some major changes. Europe is also in a good position, but yeah, it will be more equal going forward. Currently, Russia and Europe are like completely different societies, and Russia is definitely on the lower end in terms of disparity, economic disparity, etc. But that will improve. Dhanyavad ji. Yes, but more is always better, and the more the minds who can work on the projects independently instead of like a beehive mentality. Again, beehive kind of research is helpful in certain cases, but in our field, if more people work independently, it's really good. I'm also working together with quite a lot of data scientists. Recently, in one of my projects, I'd like to thank my team who was helping in charting out this. I have a video on my channel which discusses these cycles in detail. People who are interested in these cycles can go through it. The Rise and Fall of Nations is literally the title of the video. It's on my channel. And it discusses these things. A group of researchers from my institute actually worked quite hard to deliver the data that was needed for me to make inferences. I'd like to thank Dilip ji on that front as well, Dilip Bapat ji. And there are many more people like Utkarsh Agarwal ji and so on and so forth who've helped with the research that has been going on recently. And there's a large community of over 100 people who are currently starting to work on certain projects. And you can enroll in this community. It's open for anyone who has a basic knowledge of Jyotisha. And yes, Ravi ji, predicting natural disasters is my primary motive now. Earthquakes and cyclones particularly, because I'm looking at a cyclone possibility, not just a normal one, a super cyclone category 5 to 6, hitting either India or a nearby zone very soon in the coming 2.5 years or so. So I'm trying to identify that, and any help would be very welcome, helpful. Yeah. You can email us. What is the future of Pakistan and Bangladesh? I have a very interesting take here. Very optimistic. It might be because I have been very optimistic in general recently. Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, despite all the issues with their religion and the apparently irreversible harm and damage it has caused to their societies, are still core Bharatiyas. It might sound a very, very outlandish concept. They technically do belong to this civilization, and yet they don't. And that's the unfortunate reality of time. And you really can't completely other them out, because they are taught from a very young age to be not empathetic. They're taught to kill a goat after taking care of it, a little baby goat, after taking care of it for days like their own children. And then the child is forced to witness the slaughter of the animal in the most inhumane manner possible. And this happens in a large scale in Pakistan and Bangladesh, even in India. But in India, the overwhelming Sanatana Dharma influence causes even the Muslims in our country to rethink their ideas. And this is happening at a subtle scale. And you will see this in the next 10 years. I'm very optimistic that even the Muslims of this country will realize what they're doing is not really good. And once that chain breaks, they start to think critically. Once you start to think critically, you cannot adhere to a cultish concept anymore. You'll have to follow something more logical. The human critical mind is evolving every century. You cannot be stuck several centuries before in terms of logic. And it will happen. Both Pakistan and Bangladesh, it will definitely happen by between 2040 and 2060. I see an intellectual revolution in that country, although the genetics aspect is severely affected in Pakistan, especially. I expect that to change as well as there's more awareness. They are currently not having very good practices in terms of their whole country. So that I believe that will change. Till then, they're going to suffer. There's going to be war, pestilence, probably a breakdown within the country. They're just holding it together with a few $1 billion every now and then. But that's not going to last long, especially if the Iran war restarts very soon, which it will. Pakistan is the most affected country of all. I was just recently going through a list of countries which are most affected by this situation overall. If the situation repeats again, it's Pakistan. So I think all of this will lead to a better future for them in the very longer run, but in the short run, they are in a very bad position. Yes. I do wish to understand astrology, my chart, in order to help my spiritual growth. Do you guide how to reach you? I think if it is to help your spiritual growth, the best way is to find a guru. And I think they will be able to really guide you on this front. I mostly work with organizations and say asset management companies, etc., and individuals for material growth primarily, as I'm not an expert on spiritual growth. But every now and then, the duty of a Jyotishi is to imbibe these spiritual values as well, to help people gain not only materially but also spiritually. So I think the best thing for you in particular, Ji, is to find a guru, and the guru will guide you automatically. But if you still would like to reach out to me, for anyone who has purely spiritual queries, I do not charge any fee. You can go to a nearby Gaushala, feed the cows there, get them medicines, and send us an email, and we'll find some time to discuss. Yes. Is destiny fixed, or can karma change the future? Very deep question. I'll just answer it in a single sentence, since brevity is the hallmark of authenticity in some way. So let me just quote the scriptures itself. Destiny does exist. No one knows destiny. Your karma is also part of your destiny, and the outcome is also part of your destiny. But since no one knows it, why not live life in such a manner that you have so many choices and you can do the best thing possible? That's my idea.
Very well said.
Any scope coming 50 to 100 years for humanity to find other habitable planets? Very likely, very likely. Earth suffering too much. I understand. But the Earth is still very beautiful. I mean, going there is probably going to be very much likely, but I don't think it's going to sort out suffering. Klesha mula karmashaya. As long as there is karma, there is suffering. We all shall suffer, and some of us tend to suffer a little more than the others based on our karmic load. And then we just need to do our sadhanas for that. Yeah. And help each other, of course. What are the biggest misconceptions people have about Jyotish? Number one misconception, the fact that people think we call the sun and the moon planets. Technically, the sun and the moon, we do not call them planets, we call them grahas. Graha upadane, that which influences, seizes, controls, is a graha. That way, the sun and the moon both are grahas. Planet, on the other hand, comes from the Greek and Latin root that means wanderer. In that sense, the sun and the moon aren't wanderers. So this is one of the biggest things people quote when they try to defame Jyotisha. Number two, people think Jyotisha tells you everything about your future. And it's like a soft copy of your destiny. That's not the way it is. It's just a translucent mirror, especially the version of Jyotisha we have. The version of Jyotisha the sages have is a clear view into the future. Normal people like me, if you ask me, I really don't know what's going to happen next. I can give you a good idea, and I believe that I am capable of understanding the clues about the future by Bhagwan's grace. That is it. So those are two big misconceptions, but there are more, and the sake of time, we will discuss them at a different place in time. Yeah.
Oh, I think we will keep, the other questions for some other time, Yeah. I just want to tell you that what a wonderful conversation, discussion we had. I really want to thank you for coming on Unfiltered with Prachyam live. Thank you so much, Abhigya. So whether one approaches these... So whether one approaches these questions through history, geopolitics, philosophy, or Jyotish, perhaps the deeper invitation is this: do not fear change, as you said. Understand time. Kala is very, very powerful. Strengthen your character act with Dharma. And if this conversation has expanded your thinking, you should all like, subscribe, Abhigya's channel, Prachyam. I want, Prachyam to be in every home. I want every youth, every child to see, some world-class films that, I have tried to make, at Prachyam. My wonderful team has been working day and night. It is for you. It is the first Bharatiya Sanatani OTT platform in the world. It is like Netflix of Bharat. So I think, go to prachyam.com, download the app and subscribe to Prachyam OTT. Show it proudly, to your children and make them great torchbearers of our amazing legacies that we have in Bharat. So once again, Abhigya, I don't have words to thank you so much. It was so wonderful. I personally thoroughly enjoyed every word that you said, this beautiful conversation that we had. I'm sure, the audiences, they will be so much enlightened with the original perspective that you have shared with them on various things, on astrology, on dharma, on life, on times, on future, on geopolitics. So, and also, we will definitely, plan this very soon, and we will have a series of such conversations where we will dwell into all about Bharat, and its great knowledge systems and Rishi Parampara. Thank you so much.
Thank you again, Chaturvedi Mahodaya-ji. It has been an amazing conversation. And the questions you asked were very insightful, because I believe that questions are more important than answers. And that's what, extracts insights that are not present in either of us and just happen to come across in conversation. So those were excellent questions. Thanks again. And yes, I was the first time when I was told that I received an invitation from Prachyam, I was way more happier than, say, having received an invitation from some other channel, because I have been following some of your work as well, from quite some time, and I was very inspired. So yes, everybody should support this venture, and I wish you all the very best as well. And thank you so much. And I tend to go in tangents when answering questions, so I thank the audience for their patience in staying with me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Namaste. Pranam.
Pranam. Shri Krishna. Thank you.
From the timeless Vedas to the valiant warriors, from the wisdom of the rishis to the dreams of a new Bharat, our civilization has never stopped inspiring the world. Prachyam, the world's first Indic OTT, brings the glory of Bharat to the world. 400 plus films and series. From history to heritage, from devotion to discovery, every story is an offering to our eternal civilization. From G20 to Tokyo, the world is witnessing the voice of Bharat rise again.
बहुत बड़ी सनातन की सेवा हो रही है।
ज्ञान का पुनरुद्धारण का कार्य है।
Prachyam is doing an amazing job.
60 साल में हमने जो खोया को वापस लाने का काम कर रहा है।
आपका ये प्रयत्न ईश्वर की आराधना ही है।
Your contribution is not a donation. It is an ahuti in this Mahayagya of the Indic Renaissance.